Well, friends, it's that time again. Here with another three-parter for top 5 decks of the new format. Now, for some of you who probably don't know, this coming weekend is going to be not only the YCS in Anaheim, which I'm going to be attending probably at the time of one of these videos going up, but it's also the release of the new deck builder set, Crossover Breakers. And with it comes 3 new decks, 2 of which are quite literally going to be meta warping. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into those. So to start off with the first list that we're going to do, like always, it's going to be the top 5 meta decks for the new format. So coming in at number 5, I'm putting Yubel here. How the Mighty Have Fallen yet again, because before on my previous list, I had Yubel at number 2 and even number 1 at times. But because of the new releases of certain sets and new cards, namely the new Maxi cards, if we're being quite honest, this deck has kind of fallen by the wayside, and Fiendsmith has just kind of taken over in the recent weeks and months since those cards have been released. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because they made such an impact on the format, or if players are just shifting from Yubel to Fiendsmith more. I mean, it was good enough to win Worlds, so I don't know. The data speaks for itself, but for now, I think that the deck is still viable. It's just not as viable in compared to what is coming up. Now, number 4, this one is going to be Tempe. Tempe is in such a weird spot. I've been using the deck, as you guys know. I've been using the deck, as you guys know already, but I think that it's in such a weird place to where it can either be really great or it can be really bad at most points. Because the deck obviously has the capability to win in one turn, but at times, if you don't have the right build, you can brick really bad. It's almost like a new generation of Blue Eyes, almost, if that makes sense. But even compared to Blue Eyes, it has a lot more utility to it. And it has a lot more adaptability and more resources that you can use at the deck's disposal to combat certain decks in different formats. Which is why I think it has a leg up on some other decks, but I still don't think it's going to be above the next 3 in terms of more representation. In terms of win percentage, only one deck, I think, has more capability to do that, but it just depends on the situation, and it depends on what build you go for and how you decide to combat certain decks in certain ways. So if any of that makes sense, that's why I put it at number 4. Now at number 3, some of you might think that this is a little bit odd, but let me just explain. I'm putting Fiendsmith here. More specifically, the Fiendsmith, the Asmania build, the Fiendsmith with Rescue Ace or Branded, whatever the case. Any deck that is centered around having the Fiendsmith engine in it is counted in this category. I don't know what it is about this deck that makes people flock to it so much, and what it means to have so much utility with so many different builds. But bottom line is that people only really play this deck because it provides a quite broken Omni Negate. With the Baron of Savage Dragon, with the Ban of Appaloosa and Baron de Fleur, people are wanting to find what the next best negation is, because let's be honest, it's the only thing that meta players really care about is how many negations can I put on board, or how many interruptions can I put on board. And that's what Fiendsmith does. It helps provide that bridge with other decks that don't really have such consistency, be able to pull off such a feat. For instance, with the release of that new Link 2, the Goddess of the Underworld basically smaller version of that, any deck that runs effect monsters can run the Fiendsmith engine, because the Link 2 is a light fairy, which you can use to go into the Fiendsmith Link 1, and then Requiem, and then go on from there with the rest of your plays to eventually create an Omni Negate monster, which you can basically put in any deck. It's just another negation that you can put in any deck that has effect monsters, basically. So my point being is the reason why this deck is seeing such massive play is for that reason, because meta players only care about pure negation, not about player interaction or back and forth competitive gameplay. They only care about how many negations and interruptions can I play so my opponent can't play. Okay, rant over, but realistically, that is why I think Fiendsmith is in number 3. But the real reason it's not number 1 is because of the next 2 spots. I need to start off by saying that this is a very, very close matchup. These decks are in terms of competitive play, they're the same. They have the same outcomes. They have the same win rates. They have the same dead hand ratios. There's only one thing that makes the number 1 above number 2, and that is in terms of what I think the representation is going to be. Now, time could tell that could flop on its head. Who knows? We'll see on the next list I make. But for number 2, I'm putting Malice here. This deck has so much gas to it that it's absolutely insane. It's another banished archetype that could utilize Shifter, which I'm not opposed to. I love Shifter myself, as you guys know. But this deck has so much utility in terms of not only the banish strategy, but also with linking up and also with the Cybers strategy, because it's a Cybers archetype. So it has the ability to utilize their high link monsters, the Code Talk monsters, and Signet Mining, as long as all of the other main deck staples that Cyber decks use. I mean, some people are even trying to experiment with putting Salamangreats with it, which I'm not sure how that really works, but I haven't really seen any playtesting with it, but it's out there. So, but yeah, Malice is in number 2. It's one of the new decks that's coming out in the new deck building set. So let's just go ahead and get into number 1. It's Ryziel, if you guys don't know. Like I said before, these two these two decks are neck and neck in terms of competitive viability. The only very reason why Ryziel has a leg up with Malice is in terms of its deck representation. More specifically in the OCG. Over there, it's tier 0. Hands down, it was the next tier 0 deck. Malice, it only made it to tier 1 in terms of representation. So, do I think that it's going to follow the footsteps of the OCG? Maybe. It's done it before in the past, but only time will tell. Probably when I come back from the YCS Anaheim, because those decks will be legal over there. Don't get me wrong. I'll have more of an accurate percentage for you. But as of right now, before the cards are even released, I'm just going based off of the data that we have of the OCG. And what we have is that Ryziel is going to sweep the meta. Now, why is the deck so powerful? It's a rank 4 archetype. It has the ability to special summon monsters out from the hand off of summon conditions, not effects. Let's get that straight. And it has the ability to have a boss monster with such a great interruption to the point where it almost doesn't feel unfair, because it's not a negation. Sure, it's an interruption, but the thing is that you can still get your effects through. You'll just lose a card, which makes you have to think around different strategies and different roads that you have to go down in order to overcome this deck. And sure, it's an Xyz deck. There are easy ways out of it. There's Kaijus, there's Dark Ruler No More, there's Forbidden Droplets. Well, Forbidden Droplets can be hit or miss because they can still detach material, which is a whole other thing. Lava Golems, Super Poly, I think it can be a thing, as well as Droll and Lockbird. If you do Droll and Lockbird and you successfully go up against it, the best thing that they'll probably be able to do is just end on a Bagooska, which is easy enough to get past nowadays, let's be honest. But if you also have, multiple Regekis in hand or Dark Holes, sure, they can protect their board once, but they won't be able to do it again, and you can basically just clean their field and then swing for game if you have the means to. So there are ways to get over this, which is why I'm saying it's broken without totally being unfair. Like I said, if that makes sense. But yeah, definitely start maining your Droll and Lockbirds for the new format because you're definitely going to need them. But guys, that is it for the top 5 meta decks. Stay tuned for the second video of the top 5 rogue decks. And until then, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell down below for notifications, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.